It will be recorded. It will be made available on the Broadband for All website after this meeting in the next couple days or so. And I wanted to just kind of go over some general housekeeping items on the next slide, please. We do have ASL interpreters available. If you are using this functionality, please make sure that the side-by-side speaker mode is turned on. We also have closed captioning, and we have chat enabled. So I would encourage everybody to please put your name, your title, where you're, what organization or where you're from in California, just so that we kind of know who is in the conversation here today and who's participating. When we get to the portion that's going to be the discussion with everyone, please use the raise hand feature that is in the reaction section at the bottom of your Zoom window. And that way we're able to kind of prioritize and see who has comments and discussion. So thank you for that. My name is Laura Sasaki. I am the Broadband Initiatives Manager here at the California Department of Technology in the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today. Next slide, please. Our agenda today is going to cover some key takeaways from the February meeting. What did we learn from our discussion with you? We'll have some comments from some speakers just at the very beginning that kind of get the conversation started and lead into our community's discussion with all of you about digital equity and digital literacy and inclusion. We'll also talk about how to take action, some updates on items that were pending last time we talked, and then some of the next steps in the digital equity planning process and what to expect from the next meeting. So next slide, please. This is just a quick reminder of what the objectives of the working group are. And these are essentially what we'll be working through between now and our final meeting in June. So next slide. I'm going to hand this over to Camila. She is our graduate student researcher supporting our digital equity planning process. So Camila, I'm going to turn this slide over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura, and hi, everyone. So last meeting, you all shared what are the barriers that your communities are facing and how do we center equity in this process. And here are some of the key takeaways. One of them was accessibility. So training must be flexible and adaptive. And this encompasses that training needs to be integrated into the lives of adults of all ages and be available through multiple avenues. Also, as technology advances, training needs to advance at the same speed. And there should be digital literacy trainings on how to modify smartphones and other devices to be accessible for people with disabilities. Also, you shared that there is a lack of awareness and trust. And the way that we can address this is through partnerships with trusted communication channels. And also, it's important for us to have targeted outreach. And this is something very important, as you mentioned, and we can also address this through direct mail. So we can do targeted households in multiple languages. And this is the best way for us to also get the word out of our programs. And in addition, there is a need of enrollment assistance, and we must be mindful of overwhelming folks with information. So infographics are very useful. And lastly, of course, you shared a lot more, but affordability is also key. And this is why we point out here that digital equity must intersect racial equity. So it's crucial for all spheres of the population to digitally participate in society. And you did mention when it comes to equity that $30 for broadband is still expensive for some individuals, and it is a barrier. And also when it comes to working with community organizations, funding should be flexible and should also go to organizations. And again, a lot more was addressed, and you can find some more of our notes and transcripts on our website. And I'll turn it back to Laura.
Thank you, Camila. Next slide, please. So we have some folks here with us today. Some of you probably know them and work with them, and we are engaging with them to have a conversation, get the conversation started today. And we have Juliana Robbins, she's with the California State Library, Eduardo Gonzalez with California State University, and specifically Eduardo is with the Parent University Training Program. Shana England with the California Community Foundation, and AJ Middleton with Human IT. So the two questions that we asked our panelists specifically to speak to is, how does digital inequity create disparities in digital literacy and inclusion? And then how is your organization addressing barriers to digital equity? So Juliana, I'm going to turn it over to you for the first comments, and then we'll move to Eduardo, Shana, and AJ.
Great, sounds good. I'm gonna just go ahead and start introducing myself and start my 5-minute timer while the slides are coming up, which I think is happening on the back end. Hi, everyone. I am Juliana Robbins. I am a library programs consultant at the California State Library, and I just want to clarify that we're just the California State Library, but I'm here to speak with you today about all of the public libraries that are throughout California. And before I do that, I think it's important to note how we're organized, which is something a lot of people don't know about. There's 186 independent local government library jurisdictions throughout the state, and there's more than 1,100 branches of libraries throughout the state. The exact number is up there. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is how the public libraries are already working to address digital equity, and then some ideas and listen to hear about what else we can be doing. So with that, I just have 3 slides and less than 5 minutes, but I'm going to put all my info into chat, and please, if you have any additional comments or want to work together, please feel free to reach out to me. So like I said, we're distributed throughout the state. We have neighborhood libraries in every community throughout the state. Next slide, please. So some of the things that we're doing when we're looking at digital inequity and inequities in general, and we're interacting with community members that are facing barriers every day as they come into the libraries, as they call the libraries, as they reach out to the library's website for help. These are just some of the ways that libraries throughout the state are interacting with the community members, including every single one of the 8 covered populations that are listed in the state digital equity plan. So all of our libraries, for the most part, offer free Wi-Fi and public computers. Most people are well aware of that. We have the high-speed broadband program through the public libraries and in connection with local Board of Education and schools. Continuing to work towards that. Broadband is one important piece of the digital equity, but not the only piece, as we all know. Libraries have devices for free checkout. So I have a photo here from LAPL, which has their Tech to Go. So you can get a laptop, you can get a hotspot, you can get a backpack, you can get a mouse, all the things that one might need to check out for free with the library card to be able to access all of the online world. Another program that I really want to highlight, it is a personal favorite of mine, and I think there are many examples throughout the state of local digital navigators programs, but this one is important because it reaches all of the public libraries that are wanting to participate throughout the state. So our Digital Navigators program is a bilingual English and Spanish all virtual program where folks can go ahead and contact the navigators for help with broadband access, where to find devices, and then once they are online, figuring out where they can go for digital literacy training, whether it's a local agency or something that's available online for free. We do offer online tutoring that's free through public libraries to every K-12 student throughout the state. We do offer literacy services, so in English and Spanish and other languages. And those are in person and some are virtual at public libraries throughout the state. And then the last two I think are really important, but maybe don't get as much press. We have accessible hours and spaces. So I mean a couple things by accessibility here. So we are open not just 7:30 to 4, like a lot of government organizations, but we're open evenings and weekends. So people who are working during the day are able to access libraries and their services. And then also for accessibility, we have a lot of libraries have accessible devices that can help those who may have vision or hearing challenges to be able to access all of the resources that the digital world includes. And then spaces, as far as meeting spaces, places for people to be able to come into and do a job interview, meet with groups, work on literacy skills. That's an important place, that last free place. And then partnerships and connections. This is where we really want to work. Libraries work with community-based organizations and with other statewide partners. I'm looking down, I see Brian from Department of Aging. I saw Oakland Public Library on the call. There are, oops, I'm at my 5. There are lots of ways we partner and want to work together. So one more slide, and then I'll wrap it up, I promise. And the last thing that I think is really important to keep in mind, and I think everyone on this call has definitely kept this in mind recently, is that libraries often are at the point where we're addressing the gaps. We see what's happening with homelessness. We see what's happening with climate change because people are coming into libraries as places that are open and accessible at all times. On the left is a picture from outside San Francisco Public Library, just from January. And then on my right, and I think it's your right too, is Monterey Public Library. As you know, the flooding, they were able to partner with Public Works to get power, Wi-Fi, computers, checkout, and a safe space that people can come to that's open and free. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and I'll put my info into chat. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Juliana. And I also want to encourage people, if you have had a experience with one of the services or programs at one of the libraries in California, please put it in the chat. We would love to hear how this has impacted you, or if you've been able to refer people to a local library. So thanks, Juliana. We are going to go to Eduardo. Eduardo, want to make sure that we've got you on video here.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Give me just a minute and I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can see you.
That's great.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So thank you. I'm in lieu of the slides, I'm just going to make it, quick and to the point. I think part of digital inequity that creates disparities in digital literacy in the San Joaquin Valley for us is one is the language barriers, right? Language barriers to receiving, as it is, not enough digital literacy in the San Joaquin Valley. Lack of language skills is another barrier. So as many of our community members lack the language barriers as a barrier to everything that they do in regards to their daily lives. Now we have a digital literacy barrier, and so we call it the second language barrier in the San Joaquin Valley. And so how do we tackle that? And we've been doing it since 2013, providing digital literacy opportunities for families to learn the digital skills necessary to break those barriers that impede them from taking part in anything that they do in their daily lives online, right? And so we do that with a variety of programs. We do that through our Parent University program that provides digital literacy classes throughout the San Joaquin Valley since 2013. Because of COVID, we were able to extend all of our classes that were in person originally to virtual. And so now we're covering the entire state of California, allowing partnerships with school districts, nonprofits, county office of eds, and community, rural communities to be able to provide digital skills trainings in a variety of languages, English, Spanish, Hmong, Punjabi, Triki, Mixteco. And we do that from the comfort of people's homes. Now, at the beginning, we were having to deal with access issues, technology devices, and access to those devices to be able to log in to the internet and take the digital skills trainings. So the majority of our classes were in person. And then ultimately what we did is partner with the school districts to allow parents to use the devices that were being sent home by the schools, their Chromebooks, their laptops, their iPads. And so we were able to access those devices so that parents were able to join at home. The second component was, the organizations that we were working with were helping address those digital equity barriers by not only allowing us to utilize the devices, but actually allowing us to utilize hotspots for that parents would be able to check out and get internet service at home so that they can participate in these classes. Now, during COVID, obviously, we couldn't do these in person, but we did return to do some community digital literacy skills trainings in person. The majority, surprisingly, the majority of the communities and school districts decided, wait, we went from having, potentially 10 participants in a class to anywhere between 60 to 120 in one class. Let's just keep doing these virtually. One, it allows people to actually continue to practice using digital skills that they're learning by getting on Zoom calls and utilizing online tools. And so that is building, we're noticing that through our latest data from last year, we're noticing that people are more comfortable using the computers and online resources. And so as our daily lives move on to online services, banking online, telehealth online, health portals, online portals, parents and families are starting to utilize those more effective and are able to participate in online, daily usage. So that's what we've been able to do in part of Fresno State. We're focusing on digital literacy and devices and adoption. So our call center here at Fresno State, managed call center, allows communities to connect to the internet and programs like ACP to be able to ultimately, break the barriers of digital literacy and inclusion. And so that's who we are. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to serve now the state of California. We're at 53 counties of the 58. And so if anyone wants to reach out to any of us, we are adding some potential new languages to our digital literacy classes, but we are here to help and at no cost to anyone.
Eduardo, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I did want to ask, how many graduates and participants have you had come through in total? I know that I know you're expanding, and so that number is probably quite in flux. But the last time we talked, it was pretty amazing. Yeah,
so we've had over 15,000 participants go through our digital literacy just this past 2 years. I think the number has increased significantly. So we host these on a monthly basis. They're 4 weeks long. They can either be taught on a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday class. And they're normally in the evening from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. But what we're finding out is that this number of participants is growing on a monthly basis, and we're reaching anywhere between 1,200 on a monthly basis just the last 3 months. And so we think that as we're progressing and teaching these digital literacy skills, there's going to be less and less people. And actually, it's the other way around. People are finding out that there's something being offered to them, and so they're taking part in it.
And you'd also, I think at one point, and for everyone here today, we've had conversation with Eduardo before, and so I'm drawing on that. But I recall you also mentioning that one of the things that was most appealing was having the live instructions, right? And so people can actually communicate with the instructor and that versus just having an online bank of classes, right? So there's that value of the interaction in real time.
Yes, and what we tried, so because of COVID, we obviously couldn't do any in person. So we tried the video thing where we recorded ourselves and then we put the videos out there. And then we basically redirected, participants to go watch these videos. And we tried it as a pilot program, and the feedback came back is that a 2-hour session was taking 8 hours for someone to complete because they have to stop, rewind, and basically do all that. And that ultimately the in-person or the live person on a Zoom call was actually reducing the amount of time and getting the answers to their questions answered immediately. So we did away from video instruction. I'm not saying that it's not for everybody. Most people like video, they go on YouTube and learn something, that's fine. But most parents that were going through our program didn't really think that was an efficient way of spending their time. They rather take the 2-hour time and learn something with the live instructor.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing just how quickly you pivoted and recognized what people were really needing and listening to that, and just blown away by the participation and the continued growth. So we have a lot of people asking how they can get a hold of you in chat. So when I move on to the next speaker, if you would please put your information in chat so that people can connect with you. I think they're really excited about the program that you have there. I know we certainly are. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Hey, Shayna, your turn.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see so many familiar faces and such great participation in this event. I'm for folks I don't know, I'm Shayna England. I'm the director of the California Community Foundation's Digital Equity Initiative. And we are, as of right now, a 5-year project that does grant making and programming with a mission to ensure universal access to fast, reliable, and affordable internet for everyone. We also have co-founded and co-lead a statewide coalition called the California Alliance for Digital Equity, or CADE for short, that we put together with Common Sense Media and Next Gen California Media Alliance, the Rural County Representatives of California, and Michelson Philanthropies. And the goal of that was to really establish a sustained and durable voice for digital equity, digital justice, and a community voice in Sacramento and at the California Public Utilities Commission. And then the kind of third leg of the stool of our work is we co-founded and co-lead, again, with Michelson Philanthropies and several other funders, a statewide philanthropic table to help philanthropy understand how they can engage maybe differently and more and kind of more systemically in this set of issues, and created a pooled fund. And the focus in the first year of that has been providing statewide technical assistance for nonprofits and local governments and agencies to effectively engage in what can be kind of a complicated and intimidating regulatory policy making and fundraising process in this space. And if there's one takeaway, if you remember one thing that I say aside from maybe funding, is our perspective and really our lesson learned over doing this over several years across the LA County, across Southern California, across the state, and really now nationally, is that inequitable access to fast and reliable internet, things like disparities in offered pricing by some big internet providers that sometimes can disadvantage lower income communities and communities of color, and really the kind of failure to understand the digital divide as a set of interlocking issues: access, affordability, literacy, inclusion, all of those things. If we fail to think of to understand those things as really interlocking part of a system that's been reinforced over many decades, it's going to be very difficult to dismantle that system and therefore fully address the digital divide in the kind of generational and permanent way that I think we're we're focused on. So one takeaway is for us to think about our work as kind of interlocking and as part of the system. And the more that we can address these things together and less siloed, the more progress we're going to make. So to that end, Digital Equity LA is a coalition of community-based and community servicing organizations across a whole range of sectors. So when we first launched this work, we did a kind of pretty big listening tour of partners and community-based organizations and grantees and others to just say, what do you need kind of coming out of the pandemic? And the thing that was really, as everybody here will know, and I think will recognize in this statement and recognize themselves, is for every single issue area, whether it was education or healthcare or immigration or housing, every single kind of mission-driven, kind of equity-focused, justice-focused issue, folks said something around the digital divide kind of preventing progress. Whether that was folks couldn't access public benefit programs because they were all online and they didn't have access online. Obviously, the education issues, I think, are well documented. But so our coalition is kind of cross-sectoral across all of these kinds of organizations, again, working in service and equity and justice. And we focus on building a community understanding and community power around the systems that drive the digital divide and understanding how together we can dismantle those. So we host and support broadband boot camps, which are like literally we sort of put wires together and build local networks and understand the difference between wireless and fiber and cable and DSL and how those different things work, so that when these conversations get technical, community can participate in them. We host and support community trainings to help students and parents and teachers and local leaders and local elected officials understand the system and where they can engage it, again, across the different silos. And then again, we are very focused on hosting and supporting conversations to break down those silos so that when we're talking about digital inclusion, when we're talking about adoption, we're talking about affordability, we're talking about access, that we're thinking of those things as the complete system that it is, and addressing it in that way. So thrilled and a little bit intimidated to be in this group of awesome people, but that's our work.
Well, we are thrilled to have you share the work that you're doing, and also especially the insights on the engagement with the community and working specifically. I really like the what you're doing with the broadband boot camps, and I'm curious because there's so much growth in just understanding how to do some of those, basic things even in the industry. And are you seeing growth in those and a lot of increased interest in those types of programs?
Absolutely. And we held our first kind of urban broadband boot camp in partnership with the City of LA Bureau of Street Lighting not too long ago. And we actually had to close down registration because there were more people interested than we could accommodate in the Bureau of Street Lighting lot. And so in the aftermath of that, we had, I think within a couple of days, we had 12 additional requests from other cities and agencies in LA County and beyond to host those. And so are standing up kind of funding and partners and kind of other mechanisms to really quickly expand that, because folks are very interested in the kind of how the technical pieces, we think of the internet as like in the air. It's not. It's in the ground and it's on our poles and it's in wires, and having folks understand that folks are really interested in it, and it helps kind of bridge some gaps around how to solve these problems.
No, that's a really unique approach, and love hearing about that. So thank you, Shayna, so much for sharing today. Glad to have you here with us. All right, AJ, you are up. AJ Middleton with Human IT.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And as the past speakers have said, it's amazing to be here to speak and tell a little bit about Human IT, and also to see so many partner names here on talking about this issue. So my name is AJ Middleton. I'm the Senior Vice President of Programs at Human IT. So I oversee all community impact for Human IT across the country. In Human IT, we are a nonprofit that creates equitable access to opportunity by providing devices, internet access, digital skills training, and technical support to communities on the wrong side of the digital divide. while at the same time empowering businesses and organizations to do good by diverting their technology away from landfills to protect our planet. So that's a really high level way of saying we work with companies across the country and we take in all of their electronic waste, all devices that they're not using anymore. And we have the mission to wipe, refurbish, and then redistribute that to those who don't have access before. We pair all of those devices with other resources, such as access to internet resources, applying to programs like ACP, getting connected to an internet provider of your choice, digital skills training. We really focus ourselves on what we call pre-beginner to beginner training. So this is really, really introductory to what a computer is, to how to use a mouse and a keyboard, to getting started with your operating system, some internet and email basics, really that ground floor that people can then take that, where maybe this is their first computer or they're not 100% comfortable. They can take those skills and maybe go into a different course or feel more comfortable researching online, online services or whatever it is that they're trying to do with that computer. And the last thing would be technical support. We offer technical support for any device that goes out because along with myself, something always goes wrong with technology. And we want to be there to ensure that when something goes wrong, we can help fix, troubleshoot, replace whatever it is needed to get a working device. How we provide those services is really roll that up in a digital navigation service to where we ourselves really take an approach of what is the individual person that we're supporting, what goals are they trying to accomplish? I think as Shana mentioned, this issue really affects many different aspects of everyday life, from applying to resources to online banking to housing to whatever it is that's going on. So each individual utilizes the tool of technology in different ways. And we really want to understand in human IT of understanding what their goal is with the technology they're receiving, and then really understanding what services they need in order to reach that goal. So for example, someone would come in and tell us that they want to apply for a job and they need a device to do that. We would also, interpret with them, do they have adequate internet setup? Do they want to apply for ACP? Do they have the skills and understanding of how to use that device once they get it to actually apply, download their application, whatever it is, submit it. And then when things go wrong, do they have, do they know where to go to actually get that issue resolved? We then from there, have a check-in later in say 6-8 months later to identify, did the technology or the support that was provided, did it help them accomplish that goal? And since they've accomplished that goal, do they have a different goal now? Maybe they received that job. Do they now have a different goal that, is going to need different levels of technology? Is it a higher level computer, different levels of digital skills training, whatever that may be, and then connecting them with those resources that they may need. Our support is very hands-on as well. We are not just directing them to say, here, call this number to apply for ACP or go fill out this application. We're hands-on supporting people and understanding, okay, what documentation do you need to apply for ACP? Where can you go get that? Here's the information you're going to need to have ready. If we are directing them to, say, a local resource for other digital skills training that maybe we don't provide, helping them fill out that application to say that they're attending that class, or tell them exactly where it is, and following up to make sure that that individual actually attended. It was, what they needed, and they actually received that resource. So at Human IT, we take kind of that holistic approach of understanding what people's goals and what support each individual needs, and then really looking to fill that. Understanding that each person's needs and goals are going to be different. It's not a one size fits all. So we kind of do that in a mix of having people interact with us on the phone, via text message, email, in person when possible, and then providing that, those devices and those resources as hands-on and making sure that they can accomplish it as much as possible.
Thanks, AJ. I really like that you start with what the goal is and work backwards from that. I think that's a really great approach. And so I'm curious, you do the 6-8 months check-in, which is fantastic, right? So it's not like, we get you to where you can do the thing you want to do, and then we just then we peace out, right? So when you do those follow-ups, what is, from what you've seen, how many folks are expressing a desire to, set that new goal or work with you in figuring out how to, do something new?
Generally, what we see is most people really kind of understand that they need more digital literacy training, especially with a lot of the community that we support. It's very introductory. So maybe we're getting people their first computer, or they're just getting comfortable. Once they have a few months of kind of comfortability of using it, it's it's the kind of building upon those skills that maybe that they've provided. So we see most of our people kind of taking advantage of that aspect of it. What's great is we do see a lot of people that the technology or the hardware that that is being provided, you know, kind of lives that test of time where they have it for a few months and it continues to be exactly what they need, which is awesome. So I know that's not an exact percentage of how many people do it, but I can tell you most of them are in that kind of the digital literacy realm of kind of wanting to build upon those skills and then really identifying what skills those are and where we can connect them with those resources.
It really sounds like in building the confidence to do the basics, it really enables and empowers people to say, oh, hey, look, I was able to do that. I'm going to try this on my own. Look where I'm getting. So it sounds like those foundational skills that you're providing are being put to very good use. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
And I just wanted to say to all of our speakers, a big thank you for being here and sharing today some of the programs that you have and that are working. And I think it's really interesting to hear how complementary. None of our speakers really knew what the other person was going to be talking about today, but it was very interesting to see how under the umbrella of digital equity, all of these programs are very complementary to one another. And a lot of people want to know how to get a hold of you. So of all four of you, if you haven't already, please put your contact information in the chat and so people could reach out to you. So speaking of people in the chat and people that are attending, we're going to move into our conversation community discussion piece of the presentation today. So this is your opportunity to come off of mute, turn your video on. This is where we're going to use the raise hand just so that I am able to kind of track who wants to participate in the conversation. And we do have some prompts. So if we can go to the next slide, please. These are a lot of prompts, but what I want to point out is that these are largely the questions that you were asked when you registered for this event. And we really saw some great responses and great answers. And so we would love to have you expand on those if you want to, and just kind of share and discuss with your fellow attendees what pieces of this have resonated with you. So we're going to start with just the first question, which is how have you or people that you work with individually you work with experienced barriers to connecting to the digital world? So that's going to be our first question for the group. So please don't be shy. If you've got something that you want to share, please raise your hand. Hi, Carla.
All right. Can you hear me?
Can hear you and we can see you.
Perfect. Yeah, one of the things that we've run into, especially during the pandemic, and what we've realized that it's a much greater problem than just during pandemic times is isolated individuals, especially older adults and adults with disabilities, and they were particularly isolated during the pandemic. But this is kind of an ongoing issue, and they were very much impacted by the barriers they had in connecting to the digital world. If they didn't have digital skills beforehand and devices and internet service of some kind, it was much more difficult to get during the pandemic. And we're still realizing that there's this group out there that's very hard to reach. And social isolation and loneliness is a social determinant of health. So it's one of the first things to look for when you're socially isolated or lonely. Your health outcomes, regardless of your age, start going down. And so this is something we've really been tackling with our partners in San Francisco, and where basic digital literacy and the things that we're talking about today are absolutely critical.
Thank you so much for sharing, Carla.
Hey, Laura, can it seems like some people are able to raise their hands and others have questions about how to raise hands. Could you provide some?
Yeah, certainly. At the bottom of your screen, of your Zoom screen, you'll see where it says reactions. It's a little smiley face with a little plus symbol next to it. If you click on that, that's where they hid the raise the hand function. And I see a bunch more hands went up. So I'm hoping that meant that you found it. Rebecca? Nice to see you.
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate all of the dialogue that's happening today. And it's also great to see some of our amazing community partners that we're working closely with here in Long Beach. And for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm the Digital Equity and Inclusion Officer for the City of Long Beach. And one of the things that I would like to also elevate as part of this conversation is the crucial aspects of working closely with trusted partners to be able to implement digital literacy training. So AJ and Human IT is one of our amazing partners that we've been working with as part of the ARPA funding, which we call Long Beach Recovery Act locally. And they've been an amazing partner with helping us really address some of those key barriers when residents also want to, get digital literacy training. So we're very intentional with anytime that we're distributing free devices in partnership with our community-based organizations, directing them to also sign up for a digital literacy training option that's being provided through Human IT. And we're also doing a pilot program, which is called our Digital Inclusion Confidence Program, that I wanted to highlight as part of this conversation. And that pilot program is also just super cool because we were able to really look at some of those key needs that our older adult community members are facing, and tailoring this program in a way where they're able to get that in-person, one-on-one direct digital inclusion navigation services from one of our community-based organization partners. So we're hosting this all throughout Long Beach, and we're hosting them in areas that are disproportionately impacted by the digital divide, where residents can meet up with one of our community partners and learn a little bit more about how to utilize their hotspot, how to turn on their computer, how to set up an email, and really have that direct in-person while also providing interpretation services and really meeting their needs. And I would say this has also just been really successful because it's one-on-one, and also we're addressing other barriers at the same time. And I would say that has definitely been very successful for us. And I want to mention that this work is also just constantly changing. So we did initially digital inclusion navigation services through our hotline back when the pandemic started, but we had to shift because we found that that direct in-person engagement was what we needed right now, since most things are open. So that's something that we've been trying to look at, as well as how can we shift as this post-COVID world is also shifting as well. So we're still looking at this program. We're tracking data to see what residents are benefiting from it. And I would say, similar to what all of our panelists have mentioned, having language access is definitely a key barrier, and making sure that we're providing all of those resources in a language that our residents speak on a daily basis in a way that's accessible, and really making sure that we're breaking down that technical jargon that also gets tied in as we're doing this work. So thank you so much, and happy to be here. And thank you so much for holding the space for us to uplift best practices as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have a question before you go.
Yes.
You were talking about how much you are seeing the success with the one-on-one, and that's really like as close to on the ground as you can possibly get. So my question is, in partnering with the community organizations that are those trusted partners within communities and within just kind of the city of Long Beach itself. Once you've engaged with the community, how do you get down to that level of one-on-one? Is it, and how do you communicate that out? I think I'm curious about, we talked, and it was in our takeaways from February, so it's kind of just building on that. So sorry, I'm playing with a hairband. So in February, one of the takeaways we had was like the direct mailers were super successful. Are you seeing that in getting and reaching the individual? Is that where the success is? Is there a different, what are you seeing in terms of how to reach those people? Word of mouth, what sort of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's so many different methods of communication, and we ultimately tailor it in the best way that we see fit. But to outline a little bit more about our process. So as part of the application that we're administering for the free hotspots and Chromebooks, they can opt in to do the virtual training option or the in-person option, or do both if that is part of their scheduling permits. So we follow up, and when I say we work closely with our partners to follow up with the residents. So Human IT already has their information from the application, so they're able to follow up and get them connected virtually. And then we work closely with our community partners to also follow up with residents who have expressed interest in the Digital Inclusion Confidence Program. And we also try to see where those key aspects where communication can come up in regards to this program. So we also created flyers for both programs that are included as part of their complete packet when they get their free devices. They follow up with the resident via email, via phone, to connect with them to ensure that they're able to sign up. And we have a 3 follow-up rule. So usually they'll try and follow up at least 3 times. And if for some reason they're not able to get a hold of the resident, they'll let us know, and we'll see how we can mitigate that internally. But yes, definitely, I would say word of mouth continues to be the most impactful. And if you have a friend that's telling you about an exciting program that you benefited from, I feel like that is the best way to share that information. And also our community partners are touching base with all of our residents in such creative ways, whether it's through a event that provides food distributions, whether it's at a laundromat. You need to be able to figure out where are those key intersectionality touch points with community to be able to elevate this work and really, promote the programs that we're doing. But I would say that has been the most impactful, and just making sure that we can continue to center equity with everything that we're doing. Like everything that we try and do is through an equity lens, and making sure we're identifying those key challenges and barriers at the beginning and mitigating that. And, challenges do come up as we're doing this work, and we're very intentional with doing any type of course correction and making sure that we're continuing with that inclusivity and intentionality with everything that we're doing. Hopefully that answers your question, Laura.
Very much. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes. And Jeff K, I know you had trouble raising your hand, so we're going to go ahead and unmute you so that we can hear you, since that wasn't happening. Our apologies for the technical challenges. Jeff, can you hear me? Anne, are you able to unmute him?
I requested for Jeff to unmute. He has accepted on his end.
Okay, we will continue to try and work through that issue. Thank you for your patience. Renee?
Here, thank you. Hi. Well, I'm sorry, that was Jeff is at the same computer, and we've been having some problems at registering each of us individually. So I'm going to tell you the barriers that we've had have been over 2 decades. My husband's an electrical engineer and computer expert, and he's worked for our government. I'm proud of what he's done. We have not incompetent people working, and I'm a physician, a psychiatrist, a undergrad at Stanford, and then I did my second residency in psychiatry at Stanford. And so we used to photocopy for years articles regarding the health impacts of Wi-Fi. And 20 years ago at Stanford, they were going to tear down our library and put a Wi-Fi replacement. And I explained to some of my friends who listened to me, and they had young people, young children, and they delayed this tearing down. So the problem that I've seen as a barrier is, as a physician and psychiatrist, I've spent tirelessly multiple hours. I never used to do virtual meetings, but I have an intellect, and I've used it to serve only. And I'm the daughter of immigrants who came. My grandparents were part of a genocide. And the Central Valley is dear to me. My dad was a doctor that served. Our family did a lot of pro bono work. And so I've chosen to follow that. And my mom's a school teacher. So I really care about education. I really care about barriers and equity, not because I job on it, but because I serve. And so the problem that I've seen is national medical meetings in which we have continuing medical education, whether it's psychiatry, neurology, OB-GYN, pediatrics, have I've tirelessly tried to put the information and content when they're talking about various things and pushing on the virtual meetings and the Zoom meetings, that we're not giving the physicians and providers the knowledge that we've had, and that's available now. My husband and I used to photocopy all the journal articles. The content is in this meeting that I went to 3 years ago, and I was grateful. It's an integrative meeting. Beverly Rubik, who's a PhD in biophysics, spoke, and she referred to this website called Physicians for Safe Technology. I'm not in the same cachet as the neurologists and neuroscientists who publish that information, but I have been quoting Martin Pall for years in the Journal of Environmental Research. It's July 2018, where it was he's a professor of biochemistry emeritus, and he's been cranking out profound research that's been review articles. But years ago, Stanford had an MD PhD who had a double-blind placebo-controlled study of N of 2,500. I spoke to somebody in the parking lot about this because I was saying, hey, do you know this differentiation between language development in boys and girls and Wi-Fi? She's like, this was a God thing. She was the assistant to that professor. And Stanford had a president who was from Germany, and I knew his wife. She was on the psychiatry department, very nice lady. But he was putting forward this stuff despite the fact that Germany doesn't allow for the same kind of signal strength, which is detrimental. And Martin Pall's article needs to be known.
Can I just ask you, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just wondering if you could share with us if there's a barrier to connecting, because
No, it's not a barrier to connecting. It's a barrier to we are not having national and international meetings, and chat rooms are not being posted. We're not allowed to contribute this information when they're pushing one part of information in continuing medical education seminars. So nationally, whether it's the APA or pediatrician, there are a number of individual doctors who are not being trained appropriately to be able to understand that this stuff has problems that are at a neurologic level. So
Right.
I believe in wired internet being a much superior thing. And yes, but what my barrier has been that when I wrote emails to Health and Human Services nationally before the infrastructure bill allowed for our state to be able to get appropriations of this monies, I was calling everyone in HSS.
I'm going to pause you for just a
Yeah.
moment because I want to give you an opportunity here. When we have the
barriers, I'm sorry, I will limit it to this thing. The barriers are that people who are having medical problems, some of them are canaries in the coal mine, but everyone's having problems, whether it's atrial fibrillation or whether it's attention problems or whether it's depression or whether it's sleep. There are those who know about putting in wired internet, and there are those that don't. And the infrastructure bill allows for monies for broadband, but does not inform. And that was in a link that Physicians for Safe Technology had to the Commerce Transportation Science Committee that Blumenthal was head of, where they asked the industry, where are the safety studies? And I've asked multiple children, junior high students, I've talked to multiple, my husband and I have been going to multiple places. They don't know this.
Let me pause you here. We are
Yes.
going to actually have an open comment period for the digital equity plan. And that is,
but before you did the comment, please just hear me out. I am pleading with you. I have spent every ounce of my energy for the last 3 years. Doctors are not getting educated in.
I think we muted. I'm just gonna restate for participants. We do have an open comment period once we have the draft of the plan ready and put out for the public. And that's going to be an opportunity where if you have information or studies or anything that you want to share that can impact or inform, you can submit, you'll be able to submit those. We will have responses that are submitted along with the plan that say how that was evaluated. So just want to make people aware that there is an opportunity to provide extensive comments and really just thank everyone for their participation today. So can we go to Winnie, please?
Hi, good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. So thanks for the opportunity to just quickly go over the 4 questions. My name is Winnie Yu, Director of Programs and Administration at Self Help for the Elderly. We have worked with the seniors as well as job seekers and youth in our programs that help provide access to the internet and also devices and the tech support to make sure that those devices are utilized, whether it's for seniors to access resources, information, activities of daily living, job seekers to access linguistically accessible training programs to get jobs, and also for youth in our intergenerational programming to ensure they have the technology skills for academic as well as community building and giving back. What are examples of successful partnerships? As you heard from Carla's SF Tech Council, as well as other Tech Council grantees and partners here in the meeting today. These are wonderful partnerships across industry and CBOs that work well in San Francisco. And we have worked with other organizations to address these barriers. Affordable housing sites in San Francisco, other CBOs that are in workforce, in healthcare, et cetera. It is a village problem, and we need to address technology from a holistic perspective because technology is touching the lives, every aspect of our lives across all residents in San Francisco and in the state in different ways. And we do offer broadband adoption access through our Internet Essentials program and different programs to help folks be able to access affordable, fast internet. And the challenge is still not a lot of people are aware of the affordable connectivity program. So it's making sure that that information is out. People can access application in the languages, and also there is tech support that is in language to make sure that connection, that last mile, I would say even last house or last unit connection is very, very important. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share. I look forward to hearing from others and participating in this process.
Thank you, Winnie. Carrie.
Hi, it's good to see so many people here. This is fantastic. And I think a lot of us do understand some of the barriers related to language and culture and geography and income. One of the barriers I haven't heard yet is how many people have had classroom trauma. And so as a training partner who is aware of becoming a trauma healing organization, people who were not successful in school, if you bring them into an environment that reminds them of school, that they're not as receptive to learning. Similarly, if you have folks who were not successful in a group environment or one-on-one, they react to their instructors the same way they react to authority figures generally. So that's something I think that I haven't heard yet. And I know many of us are very aware of the trauma that our learners bring with them into this environment and the confidence and that they need to succeed. And so I'd like to just keep that in this, I'd like to keep an awareness of this in this process.
No, I really appreciate that. And this is the kind of thing that we do continue to want to hear, just the topics that we haven't brought up, because I think like that's typically one of the things that we ask for, right, is what haven't we talked about? And I think we've heard a couple of those things here today. So thank you so much, Carrie, for sharing that. Okay, I think we have time. Sydney?
Hi. Hi, I don't know if you can see me. I just wanted to mention, I'm Sydney Cox, director of the EMF Safety Network. And I've worked with many people who live in low-income housing developments where they have their Wi-Fi router right next to their bed because they have a little small space, or the Wi-Fi router is really right next to their desk. And they, because they're disabled seniors, many of them, they're actually getting negative reactions from these Wi-Fi routers, just feet from them when they sleep. So one of my things that I love to do is tell them how to hardwire their devices, just using an Ethernet cable, and also just distance from the router. And I hope, and that actually allows them to have the Wi-Fi router on where they all need connectivity. Everybody needs to be connected. So this is a way for them to be safely connected. And some of them turn it off at night. But they also, these low-income seniors also have DSL, which is through the copper lines, AT&T, the old copper lines. And they don't necessarily have to have the highest Wi-Fi speeds. So that's really important for these people in these small income, these communities where their provider can cook them through the copper line. So I just wanted to add that, and how to keep people safe, teaching them how to hardwire devices, still have connectivity, but use an Ethernet cable. And then the Wi-Fi router needs to be disconnected often from the source. So the provider needs to be called and they have to do something on the back end. It's not something like pushing a button, but there are different Wi-Fi routers. So that's a great resource to give people to be safely connected, because they need to be connected. So thank you for your time. This is a great meeting.
Thank you, Sydney. And I think that's also a really good point. There are a variety of ways to be able to connect and get connected. So we've kind of addressed some of the other questions that were in here, but if you haven't had a chance to respond to those, we're also looking at what are examples of successful partnerships or collaborative initiatives in your community, and have you worked with an organization, or are you an organization that offers services to help with these barriers? And we've heard from a lot here today, but if there's anyone else that wants to contribute to the conversation, we would love to hear from you. And I'll just pause for a moment. Hi, Paul.
Hi, hopefully everybody can hear me. This is a great conversation. I want a big shout out to Rebecca and Long Beach. They got us started a couple of years ago on this. Rebecca, we've come a long way. We at the San Diego Housing Commission have done a lot with outreach, simply sending out a lot of mails, a lot of letters. We've done some really great partnerships with Sandag, the city of San Diego. We're currently working with them on a broadband master plan. We've got training down pat. We've got donations going real well. We're working with San Diego Oasis and doing a program for our older community, getting them tablets and 1-year access. I think I mentioned it. I mentioned this to Drew and I mentioned it in the chat. Our big thing right now is, after we met with Big Apple Connect, we wanted to find out how they ended up getting a lot of broadband services to free to their public housing, because we oversee public housing for the city of San Diego. And right now we're currently working with our legal team and ISP providers on a public-private partnership. We're waiting to hear if we're going to be granted funding from Your Home, Your Internet. We're also looking into public housing funding. So I guess we're really kind of waiting on some of the funding to come in. But our big challenge right now is how do we get broadband as a utility so that we can actually take care of those costs that way. But in the meantime, $30 is very expensive for a lot of our public housing folks. We've been doing a lot of outreach on ACP. So our goal is to try to find a way to get broadband services, get that last mile taken care of at either no cost or less than $30 for our residents in public housing. So I know that some folks out there may have some thoughts and ideas on that. Would love to hear more about that, but that's our biggest challenge right now. And that's what we're really focusing on. We're bringing in some college students this summer to help with some researching on what the costs are, because our costs are anywhere from $30 at some residents to $150, depending on the bundles, the packages, all those excise extra taxes. So we're working hard on that. I think eventually finding a way to get this as a utility and covering it that way will be great if we can get that done at some point. But I think this is a great group of folks working on this stuff. And I know here in San Diego County, working with the county, working with our CBOs, we've been doing a lot of great work, but we still feel as though there's a lot more to do, and collaboration and building the relationships is really what's going to make the difference. So thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you for sharing the connection that you were able to make between San Diego and Long Beach. And I think that's, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but I mean, that's part of why we want this group also to get together, because it's highlighting it's highlighting the programs that are out there that may work in your community, right? And how do you scale that for what the work that you're trying to do and learn from one another. So please, again, I would encourage you to put contact information in chat if you want to reach out to one another. You can do that and just continue to grow the community and the discussion. So Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jordan.
Hi, thanks so much. Jordan Lindsay, I am the Executive Director of the ARC of California. The ARC represents and advocates for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families across the state. Just going to quickly give some information about one of our programs that kind of addresses many of the questions, and in hopes that it may lead to collaborations, which have already been taking notes from some of the earlier presenters, which I think may definitely work into that. One of the barriers, and again, coming through COVID, is that a lot of the services and supports that individuals with developmental disabilities rely on were no longer being provided in person. They had to be done remotely. There was a kind of an inequity already in place with individuals who have barriers due to their disability. Double inequity oftentimes in segments of the Spanish-speaking communities around California, because information was not readily accessible in their native language. And then sometimes even triple inequities, because a lot of those similar communities were also living in very rural areas of the state. Themes that have already been brought up already. And so we partnered with a community, again, very important to create that trust with organizations and individuals that already have that trust already in that community. And so we partnered with them. We got a grant to purchase many iPads and actually still have a handful of those, creating a lending library. And so one of the biggest challenges we've discovered along the way is that you can have the trusted individuals, you can have the accessibility, you can have the price be $0. Here's an iPad, here's a hotspot, we're paying for it all. But the adoption is really one of the biggest challenges we've discovered, is how do you get individuals actually utilizing, using effectively the technology and the access that they have now. And so that's something that we're still trying to really find the magic sauce to, is how do we further adoption of the technology and the resources that are now available to individuals when we meet with them and connect with them. But so just wanted to give some of that information about the community that we're connecting with, specifically the developmental disability community, and even more specifically, many segments of the Latino and Spanish-speaking disability community.
Jordan, thank you so much for elevating that. And I also want to just, as a reminder to folks, and I don't think we've really, said it, but as we're watching the chat and capturing what's in the chat and the comments that are coming through, because we are recording this, all of that information is informing what we are looking at for recommendations to put into the digital equity plan. So just by you being here and raising that becomes part of the conversation. So I really want to thank you for your time and for sharing with us. I would like to go to Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name's Cynthia. Whoops. Oh, okay. Start video. Hi, my name's Cynthia. I'm chair of Tech Exchange in Oakland, so representing Northern California here. There's a lot to talk about, but I'm just going to focus on two things. Just looking at the chat, Tech Exchange also provides tech support in the Bay Area. We were the organization that did the heavy lifting for the Oakland Undivided effort, where we put 38,000 computers into Oakland Unified. That was done by our team. So that was tech support, that was explaining how to use the tools and making sure that the students had the laptops that were provided in the program. Two things I wanted to point out today is one, often I see people referencing new computers. I would take a refurbished laptop over a Chromebook any day. The laptops allow more power, allows people to download information and start to learn how to manage data on a computer for their household, for their family, for their personal needs. We definitely work on the cloud too, but I was in a program when we were giving out refurbished computers and people were responding as this used. And it's important to help people understand that these computers have been wiped, as they're referred to by military standards. I personally don't buy new computers myself. I buy them refurbished from Apple. It's like buying a used car. It's nothing wrong with it. So I would encourage people that. And the second thing is for many areas, Sonic.net is now installing gigabit service. And I was very surprised to find out it was in East Oakland where my mom lives. So my mom at 90 now has gigabit service. So Sonic does not have fiber everywhere, but please look, because I learned it's in Southern California as well, because you may be in an area, you may be able to support an area with next generation speed in their home, fiber internet. And they also are doing the ACP program. So they're applying the Affordable Connectivity $30 off, making the cost as low as $10 a month for next generation speed at their home. So we don't have to bring everyone to the same level. If we could get our communities to leapfrog other people, then let's get in there and do that. So I wanted to point out that Sonic.net is now offering that service, and they're recognizing the $30 per month discount. And it's not the backhauled AT&T service, it's pure fiber to the home. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're running a little short on time. I don't want to leave anybody out, so we'll go to Erin and Crystal, excuse me, in that order. So Erin.
Hi, thank you. I am with Bitwise Industries. We're a tech services company and apprenticeship program, community development engine based in Fresno, and we also work in Merced, Bakersfield, and Oakland. I wanted to highlight a successful partnership and initiative to overcome adoption challenges that we're carrying out in Fresno and expect and hope to take to some of the other cities I just mentioned. We are working with the city of Fresno and partners who work with the small business community and provide digital services throughout the community and even outside of the community, bringing people and resources in to organize around a small business digital empowerment center. We have apprentices and we're putting apprentices from the community to work doing outreach to small business owners who are from covered census tracts, who are whose residents align to the covered populations, who are the focus of digital equity interventions. And we're bringing together a bunch of trusted resources and organizations, people who have deep connections in the community, to work around use cases to do really effective digital skills training. I think that's the important point I wanted to make. It's making this relevant and directly useful to people on day one. I think that's really important to get people in the door and to get them actively using the resources that they may not have had access to in the past. And when we do it with a population that's a covered population, but also has the ability to do so much more with those skills, we're eventually creating more demand for tech so that people in skills training programs, so that skills training programs are more relevant to every person in the community, because they can see that they have a clear professional path and a place to go to take those skills in the future, to work with newly empowered small businesses that are growing.
That's awesome work, Erin. Thank you. And I do want to note that in chat, Juliana said Bitwise, yay. So thank you for that. And I think that's a great note to kind of close out our discussion portion of this and move on to how you can get involved. So we're going to just kind of share with you some of the items that were in process last time. And I'm going to pass over to Rich Navas, and she's going to provide an update on that.
Thank you so much, Laura. Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Navas. I work with Broadband Equity Partnership. We serve as program advisors and consultants to the California Department of Technology. We are assisting with the state digital equity planning process, as well as the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. I just wanted to touch on the surveys that many of you have already heard about, the fact that we're going to be releasing a couple of surveys. There are two surveys, one targeting organizations and entities called the DEEM tool, and the other that targets California households. The survey that is meant for California households is called the Digital Equity Public Survey. This survey is meant to assess the digital equity barriers faced by California residents, especially as it impacts broadband accessibility, affordability, and adoption. The survey will be available in multiple languages, and it will have audio functionality as well, so that communities with limited English proficiency or limited literacy can actually hear the survey questions being asked in the intonation of the language that they're used to. We intend to release this survey in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. More information is forthcoming. Next slide. The other survey targets California organizations, CBOs, faith-based organizations, nonprofits, state agencies. This survey is called the Digital Equity Ecosystem Mapping Tool, and it will help us understand what programs are being offered throughout the state and the populations that are being assisted through these programs. So if you're an organization, an entity, a state agency that helps leverage, that leverages technology to help any California resident get connected or to access any services through those connections, we really want to know about it. We are asking for any type of data that you have to share with us. That could include your program information. That could include the GIS mapping that you've already done. Many coalitions have already collected broadband mapping information that they want to share with us. We'd love to see this information. We'd love to collect this information so that we have a more representative sampling of really what's happening throughout the state in terms of connectivity, accessibility, affordability, and adoption. So this tool, the DEEM tool, is now live. We're very happy to release it and share it with the public. Next slide. We have a toolkit that we've rolled out. Please access this toolkit. We're actually going to drop the links of the toolkit and the DEEM tool in both the English and Spanish version into the chat right now. Please push this out with your partner entities. It's important for you to fill this out and share it with your channels, your partner networks. So if you are a coalition, if you are an entity that works with other nonprofits, churches, other groups throughout the state that are helping communities get connected, please push this out to these communities. Please share the links with these communities. Please use the outreach toolkit. If you have any questions about how to go about doing this, how to make this more effective, come talk to us, reach us. I'm actually going to drop my email in the chat and just reach out to us. You can also reach us at DEEM, D-E-E-M, at state.ca.gov. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to help you in any way push this out. So I just saw something in the chat about a digital inclusion meetup, and y'all were talking about a happy hour. I just asked that y'all consider filling out this DEEM tool when you all meet on the meetup and you have that happy hour. So I've made my pitch. Looking forward to seeing what comes in from the DEEM tool. Thank you all.
Thank you, Richna. We could end up with some interesting responses on the DEEM tool. If we can go to the next slide, we're just gonna want to get to a couple things before we close out. So ways to get involved. You've seen most of we talked about most of these today. So in the interest of moving forward, what I do want to touch on is that we will be very shortly on the events page sharing the first of our local events. So keep an eye out for that. And I'd like to go on to the next slide, please, and turn it over to Gladys Papalatek from NTIA. This is about their request for comment on the two upcoming digital equity programs. Gladys.
Hi, thanks, Laura. This has been an amazing conversation today, more robust than the last one. So that's it's exciting to hear and see so many partners are old and new. So thank you. What's on the screen now is an opportunity for more input from you all and your partners and your communities. NTIA is about to release two NOFOs, Notice of Funding Opportunities, one for the State Digital Equity Capacity Grants Program, and the second being the Competitive Digital Equity Program. In advance of releasing the NOFOs, NTIA would like to hear from you all and your communities again. So spread the word in terms of what that NOFO should look like. There are questions that are posted on this request for comment. So you can answer those and also include other input that you may have. So the link is there in this slide, and you will be able to click on it when the slides are shared and posted. And my contact information is there as well as my phone number. If you have any questions, please direct them to me, and we hope to get as much input from you all as possible. I'll also drop some of these links in the chat so that you can look at it today. Thanks, Laura. Back to you.
Thank you, Gladys. Much appreciated. This is a great opportunity. So if any of you want to submit those comments, you've got plenty of time. So thank you, Gladys. So in terms of our next steps, next slide, please. For the working group, what we'll be working on between now and kind of the next meeting in May, and you've heard about part of it today, is using some of the information that we're gathering during the survey time period to help develop strategies that are aligning with the priorities and requirements that we have for the digital equity plan, using those to kind of look and conduct the gap analysis of what we need, and then using that to make recommendations for what actually goes into the plan, in the draft plan that will be released for public comment. So next slide to cover May and June. So for our next meetings, we'll be talking, again, this is a continuation of the conversation. So you may see the same types of questions over and over, but it's because we are continuing to learn and we have new people coming into the conversation every time. So what digital equity programs are working well in your communities, but also what's missing. So we're asking for some of this through the DEEM tool, but maybe you're not an organization and you want to say, okay, in my community, this is what's missing. And then in June, looking at that data that we've been gathering and how that's shaping the priorities. So those are the upcoming items for the next meetings. And we have just a moment. Wendy, I did see that you raised your hand, so I want to make sure I get to you before we close out.
Hi, my name is Wendy. I live in San Francisco. And so I live in a really technology-rich environment. However, I just wanted to say that I had put this in the chat, is that I love CBOs and stuff like that, but there are still plenty of people who are not being who are not connected to various groups that are still not being reached. And I want you guys to think about, as part of the digital equity plan, is to do outreach to people who are not digital natives via traditional sources through newspaper ads, whether that is a local newspaper ad or and food pantries and publicly funded hospitals and clinics and stuff like that, because that's if you're not online, you're not going to be able to see you're not going to be able to get access by connecting to neighborhood organization to CBOs. Okay, and yes, there seems to be a lot a patchwork of different people doing different things and stuff like that. But ultimately, for me, you know, working with different computers at the library and you know, a tablet or something like that may not be the best fit. And it would be nice if people think about you know, asking people what they want. And lastly, I just want to relate the story I had. This is more than 10 years ago. I went into a senior center in order to charge my laptop, okay? And then I started working on it, and immediately, you know, 4 people came over and started asking me questions about what I was doing, and you know, and I explained very carefully that I was charging, and you know, and did work, and eventually they came to me because I was there. Okay, it wasn't someplace that I had to go to, you know, to learn something. Anyway, that's my feedback.
Wendy, very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that's something that I don't think we've heard directly from someone. So thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us. And I think that Scott wanted to respond to that. Scott?
Yeah, Wendy, thank you very much for your comments. I mean, I think that it brings us right back to the purpose of how intentional the state is trying to be with the digital equity planning process and how inclusive. We know that the digital equity barriers are varied between access and affordability and adoption, and that you know, there are specific barriers associated with the covered populations, and that when it comes to the adoption piece, that trusted messengers are key, and that trusted messengers are not universal for different segments of the population. In some cases, it's going to be a state or local government agency, in some cases a CBO, some cases a library. And so what we're really grateful for is all this like rich information sharing and partnership of people coming together to identify how, at the end of the day, we can create this unified coalition that's aligned along a mission and formed and developed and you know, outlined in the digital equity plan and funded by digital equity capacity dollars to meet the very you know, unique and specific and individual needs of you know, the members of the 8 covered populations that we're intending to serve. So really just wanted to say thank you very much, that all of these unique perspectives are important you know, inputs for us to know as we collectively develop this plan together.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone. You hung out for a little bit longer than our allotted time today, and just want to really express our gratitude and thanks for the time that you spent with us, with the feedback that you provided. It's a lot to listen and digest, and we just really thank you for that. So I hope everybody is, in the aftermath of our storm, staying safe, that you continue to be safe. You have a lot of contact information in the chat. I loved seeing what was going back and forth in the chat because you guys are really getting to know each other. And that's kind of also one of the goals of this. So our next meeting is in May. To keep an eye out for the April events that are going to be the in-person events. Those will be going up on our website. And we look forward to seeing you in May, if not before, at one of the local events, and also welcome your communication and feedback to us via email. We've put our contact information in there. It'll be on the slides, multiple ways to reach us. So thank you again, and I hope that you all have a fantastic afternoon.